The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good afternoon or good morning, depending upon where you connected from. My name is Holly Mackey at the University of Oklahoma, and today we're very, very excited to have you on. We have the UCEA and Jackson Scholars Network webinar on navigating AERA, tips from the field to maximize professional opportunities. And with us today is Dr. Julian Vasquez from California State University, Sacramento, and Dr. Angel Myles Nash from Chapman University. So I don't want to take a lot of time with introductions because we only have an hour. And we know that there's a lot of you who have very little experience with AERA or have gone to AERA and you're not sure what to make of it. So this is an opportunity for you to get some advice from people who have spent quite a bit of time there on how to make sure that you're getting what you need from it, and get some tips on presentations, whether you're doing a roundtable or a paper presentation, if you have questions about SIGs, and really thinking through how to best position yourself for a faculty position once you graduate. So we do have a question box over on the chat feature. You can put any questions there, and we have Danny from UCEA headquarters moderating the questions. So we'll get those questions over. And you can also post different resources or any links that you would want over there as well. So between Danny and I, will try to get to all of your questions, and if they're questions specifically for the speakers, then we'll send those over to the speakers. So with that, I will go ahead and turn that over to our two scholars.
Thank you, Holly. Julian, can you hear us? It looks like all of the attendees are muted. Danny, I wonder if there's a way to unmute so that we can. Let me try. There we go. Oh, still says mute.
Well, and you know, Julian might be trying to call in. I know he was at a legislative session. So
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we hear you now. Hi.
Hi, everybody. So glad to join you today. Julian Vasquez, professor at California State University. I do ed policy and leadership work. I also serve as the director of the doctorate in ed leadership. I've actually recently wrote a couple of pieces about scholars being relevant in the public space. And so to be relevant in the public space, you kind of have to roll with the punches. And so this morning I'm testifying at the State Board of Education, and I have a meeting with a group of stakeholders about the charter school bills that are, both of these things were unexpected when we scheduled this 2 months ago, but that's public policy, right? So I actually, they're going to text me when it's my turn to testify. So I'll have to step out a little bit. And then I have probably 20, 25 more minutes after that before I have to head to the meeting at the Capitol. But I'm looking forward to talking with everyone.
So Julian, with that being said, I'd love to offer for you to speak first, in case your time is, it becomes limited and, like you said, unpredictable. So I'll give the floor to you to start regarding navigating AERA, and then I'm happy to speak after you.
Great. So I'm one of those folks that really likes AERA. I know for some, it can be overwhelming. It can be, you don't even know where to start. And I think one of the things to understand about AERA is that you're going to experience it differently at different points in your graduate student experience. You're going to experience it differently as you progress through the field in education, as you progress into tenure track, etc. At first, as a graduate student, I would try to go to 3 to 4 sessions a day. If I would go to more than that, it would my brain would melt down. I would try to pick 3 things that were directly relevant to the work that I was thinking about and interested in, and maybe ultimately writing my dissertation about. And then I would pick one session that was just a flyer, just something that was interesting to me that may not be, policy related or leadership related, like hip hop in the curriculum, that kind of thing. And so that was really my approach to the sessions. I think it's also important to think about that you really want to network. I don't know, for some of us, networking is a natural thing. For others of us, it's something that, we're working on. But this is important because the graduate students of today are your peers and colleagues of tomorrow. That's not something I really thought about too deeply when I was, I've gone to AERA, let's see, 17 out of the last 18 years. And so it wasn't something I was thinking about as a graduate student, but it's important to build those networks, build those connections, because those are your future co-authors. Those are your future colleagues. Those are the people that when you're on the other side of AERA and you're doing program planning, you're running for offices, those are your colleagues and peers. So you don't want to go into it as like, I have to network. It's something that, you want to go into it because you just really enjoy spending time with people, enjoying in listening to their work and their experiences, also taking downtime. So that's the networking side of this. And then thirdly, I would take advantage of the social events. Make sure you go to the places that have free food. Vanderbilt's one of those places. Go to the receptions, find out where the receptions are, and go to them. Also, the communities of color also have several really important receptions. There's always a black and brown reception. Usually they do it at a local bar or lounge. There's the Black Sig reception. There's the Latino Pachanga, where the Latinos get together. So just make sure you take advantage of the different receptions that the different SIGs and different groups are doing, business meetings, etc. But also make sure you take advantage of the different events that communities of color are holding. And then fourthly, try to find ways to collaborate with other students. Try to get on the radar of faculty. That's how you find those opportunities to collaborate and write, be part of grants. Just be on the lookout for different opportunities that are out there. And then overall, just enjoy AERA, right? I'm telling you, before you know it, you're going to be a tenured professor, and you're going to ask yourself, where did the time go? I used to be that young graduate student presenting posters at AERA, and now I'm scheduled for 8 things at AERA. So, just enjoy that time. Just like on your campus, make sure you just sit down on a bench and just enjoy it, because it goes by super fast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julian. I think you said a lot of great and important things about looking long-term at your trajectories, living in the moment of being a graduate student and taking it all in, but also thinking long-term about it, I think is so important. So I think a lot of the things that I'll say echo and align right with what you offered. So I'm Angel Myles Nash. I am a first-year assistant professor at Chapman University here in Orange, California. And prior to my strong 7 months here, I was the Jackson Scholars graduate research assistant at headquarters at UVA in Charlottesville. So it's a pleasure to be on this side, but still be fully engaged in Jackson Scholars Network. It's near and dear to my heart, and in the work that I do actually around making sure that students of color are supported at every stage and every juncture of their education. So my work briefly looks at the emboldenment of Black girls in STEM education and what school leaders do to secure that equitable access to STEM education for historically underserved populations. So I'm going to talk a bit about, like I said, things that echo what Julian offered. First, I would suggest that you make a schedule and plan ahead. The schedule is available already on AERA .net, they have a microsite, and this shows an example. This is just a screenshot, but it shows how you can access their microsite, which I also put in the chat, but I'll re-enter it just in case people before. So it's AERA19.net. And so on this page, as you see what's showing now, there's access to information about registering and understanding the space that we're in. Danny, if you could go back to that first page. And then in the middle where the arrow points, it's a link to the program schedule for the entire annual meeting. So everything you'll need to know about when sessions are happening, but also when other events are happening. Some of those that Julian mentioned, the social events, the receptions, the business meetings, all of those are also listed. So Danny, if you could go to the next page. Thanks so much. So at the top, when I say make a schedule, you'll see at the top that you can search by event or by participant. So like Julian just mentioned, he's in, 8 things this year. So if I am a scholar that's interested in learning more about what his current work includes, then I could literally type in his name and search for his events. And so in doing that, like he said, you don't want to fill your whole entire day with sessions. So I wouldn't try to go to every session that, a scholar that I may be interested in talking or learning more from would be in, but I would choose strategically. If they're presenting at a round table, that's a smaller setting. You're literally sitting around the table with, no more than 5, 10, 15 people. So that gives you a higher likelihood of being able to fully engage in a conversation with that person because of the type of event. But if they are presenting a paper in a full paper session, there'll be more people. But if it's a topic that you're really interested in, and I suggest you go to that, as well, or as an option. If you see them listed for their work with a particular division or a SIG, we keep saying that word, a special interest group, then those are groups that are organized by topic, as are divisions. So the divisions, as you probably know, are by letters. So we have division A, B, C, all the way, I think it goes to like K or L, definitely L, because that's one of our leadership and policy positions. So a division for us at leadership is division A, actually. So you'll see, if you typed in division A, you'll see when they have their business meeting, and you'll see the people involved in basically the business of a division means, how they recognize scholars, how they put the program together for AERA around the topic of leadership. You'll see that they are offering awards for early career scholars and dissertation of the year for that division and that topic. You'll also, if you attend that division, that business meeting, get to hear how the division is run, like who the officers are, both the faculty officers and the graduate student officers, which each division also has a graduate student executive committee that you can plan long-term to involve yourself in. So just being in that business meeting, I think, is very important. It's not something we think to add to our calendar, but it's very important to understand the inner workings of AERA and really make this 15,000 plus member group feel small and intentional and connected. So I suggest that we're all, in leadership to some capacity. I suggest that you attend the Division A business meeting if you are able to, because you'll get to, like I said, meet most of the leadership, faculty and scholars and students in that one space. And then thereafter, there is a social reception, like Julian mentioned, for the division, and they actually often have it connected with Division L because our work is so connected in ed policy and ed leadership. So you'll see that there should be a Division A and L reception after the Division A business meeting. So all that to say, make a schedule, because there's so much to involve yourself with, both the sessions, the research sessions, whether it's a poster session where you get the opportunity to take in many researchers and posters at the same time, or whether it's a paper session where you may see 4 to 5 papers presented in one setting, or a round table where you'll see 4 or 5 or 6 papers presented, whilst all of the presenters and guests are sitting around a table talking in a smaller setting. So make your schedule with that in mind and look for, like Julian said, topics that are connected to your research, but also look for topics that, or scholars who you may not know about, but by topic, it may show that they study something that you're interested. So you'll see that you can search by events and participants on that page. So I can put in a person's name, or you can put in the event like business meeting or SIG for Black research of Black education as an example, or SIG, we have a SIG for leadership for social justice. So you can put in those keywords and find those events, but you can also just put in a topic, like because I study Black girls as one of my research areas, I can literally type in Black girls up at the top and I could find any topic, any word, anytime those words come up in a description of a session, that's going to show on the screen, and I'll scroll through and see what those presentations or research areas or whatever they are. I'll be able to see it there. So use this site early and often to plan your schedule, to search by person or by topic, and plan ahead and go in knowing what you want to do. There's also an app that you can coordinate your schedule on as well. I tended to very early on make spreadsheets because I had the responsibility of work and attending sessions. So that just worked for me. But however you like to plan your time, on your phone calendar or whatever you want to do to make sure that you know ahead of time before you get there what you would like to attend. And I would also say, to make sure, Julian talked about networking, and I would say to make sure that your net is actually working. I like to make that a verb, to figure out, is your networking, like, are you connecting with people at different stages in the field, making sure you are meeting graduate students who are in your field or interested in the same topics that you're interested in, and early career scholars and senior scholars, because when you think about the work that you're doing, you do need to think long-term, as Julian mentioned, and how they can help play a role, and vice versa, how you can help play a role in their research, and how you could collaborate with them or just cheer them on in their journey, as you continue to meet people in AERA. So, I would look at who can be, someone who is just that, a champion, or an advocate, or a sponsor of work, or a collaborator or co-author. So think broadly about how your net is full of different types of people who can help add to the work that you're doing, but also think about how you can return that help and support in different roles. So don't think you have to be all things to all people, but think about how you can fill in the different types of support in your net, to make sure that it's all working together, for your success. I would also say to have business cards with you. I know we live in an age of social media and technology. Still goes a long way. It puts your name in their space, and helps connected to their memory a little bit longer than a connection may make on social media if they're not a person who's on social media much. Doing both is fine, but I would say come with business cards. Don't underestimate the power of still including that in, your introduction to someone. You get a badge from AERA on a lanyard, and there's space in there to keep your business cards quick and ready to take out and give to people as you meet them, because you don't know how long of a time you'll have. You may just have a time to go up and thank them for their presentation before you have to rush off. So it's important to have business cards. And I would also say, to that end, have questions prepared as you make your schedule. Think ahead of time of what you might want to engage a scholar in when they're presenting or after they're presenting, when there's time, when the discussant or facilitator offers time for questions. Think ahead of time of what you may want to ask them about their work. Never be confrontational about the work. I understand being critiquing in a way that's respectful. Always prioritize the respect, even if you're engaging in a great conversation, definitely still keep it collegial, cordial, and respectful in all of your engagements with anyone that you meet during your time there, because it is a professional setting. And travel tips, I would say to plan ahead, know the space that you're staying, your commute, if you're walking or, however you're getting to the convention center in downtown Toronto, plan ahead as much as you can. There'll be, over 10,000 people in that location. So think and plan for your space to take care of yourself with self-care as it relates to your meals. I honestly always have bars with me of some sort in case I, get to a restaurant and don't have the time to eat or grab, something on the go. So have bars, have whatever you need to stay sustained and healthy during that time. Have water, have things that are going to keep you going, because it does make for long days, and like the social events that Julian mentioned are in the evening always. So it'll make for long evenings as well, because the time you spend in the professional setting is equally important as the time you spend in the social setting, getting to know people on a personal level. Those times are important. And it's also rejuvenating for you as a scholar. You realize, you're reminded that scholars like to, have fun in social settings as well. So engaging yourself, I know you're tired, at the end of the day, but the extent to which you can plan to try to make at least one social event during your time there becomes equally important as the time you spend during the conference in the sessions. So that's all I would put forward, and I'm open for questions.
Dr. Nash and Dr. Vasquez, highlight, this is for you as well, if you're still available. What about presenting challenges for graduate students? Can you talk a little bit about that? Maybe give us some advice?
Yeah. I could just talk about that a little bit. Don't be boring. That's the first thing to say, which is that academics are incredibly boring. But that being said, we also have to be very professional. So I would recommend, first you got to figure out what kind of presentation it is. If it's roundtable, if it's poster, if it's a paper presentation. Poster's really straightforward. With roundtables and sessions, you want to find out with your collaborators, if you have them, how much time you're each going to present, who's going to take what part of the paper, weeks ahead of time, if possible. Hopefully your paper is done, and you're not rushing at the last minute. Put together your slides, put the slides together, talk about who's going to do what the timing is. Make sure when you do your presentation that you don't spend all of your time on the introduction and the conceptual framework and the literature review. A lot of people make the mistake of spending all their time on the front end on those things, and they never get to their findings. So make sure you get to your findings. I recommend using something like beautiful.ai, which is one of the newer approaches to presentation slides. Beautiful.ai. You can just put that into your browser window. You can always use PowerPoint or Keynote. But if you want to have a little bit of an edge, try using Keynote. Try using beautiful.ai instead of PowerPoint. And be prepared to, in your presentation, put your Twitter handle, put your LinkedIn account. Recommend that people tweet at you from your presentation so you can retweet them. Recommend that people add you on LinkedIn, etc. So use that as have a slide that has those things on it so that you can stay connected with people that came to your presentation. Also, don't be super disappointed if only 4 or 5 people show up. That's pretty normal and typical at a really large conference. So those are just a couple of pro tips, but also don't be boring.
I echo that. Don't be boring. Definitely use other types of presentation platforms and software, I always encourage that. But I also caution in doing that, make sure you can have access to it in any space. So as an example, I use Spark, Adobe Spark as a presentation platform, but it requires Wi-Fi. It requires a connection to network. I haven't used Beautiful.ai, I'll check it out. But whatever you use, like if you use Prezi, or something that is built on the web, then think ahead of time on if you need to have your page pulled up and, functional. Test all of that out ahead of time, because you don't want to get in there and, expect to show a video or, even just your presentation and then not have access to it because of internet. The spaces that we present in with AERA are not, sometimes they don't have working outlets, so have your laptop charged. Believe it or not, they charge the rooms for working outlets in every room. So a lot of the rooms don't have working outlets. AERA just doesn't, add that cost in that way. So we should have Wi-Fi access. It's all, that should be available, but just plan ahead to know that you have everything ready to go, and have your, your devices charged, have your adapters ready just in case, because I can't tell you how many times we've come into a room and we expect to plug in with VGA or HDMI or USB-C is the newest one. So whatever you need to connect and project, bring that with you, because again, they're not guaranteeing that they'll have that for you because there's so many different needs and devices. So have everything you need ahead of time for your presentation to go smoothly, is something I would say is of the utmost importance. And then also have a backup, way to present in case things go wrong.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. All very informative. I typed in the chat, bring a dongle. From my very limited experience, like you can never have too many in your back pocket.
Right.
So I do have more questions, questions that have been submitted by some of our graduate students. When you are in a session and you are participating, what is the right approach, or is there an approach? Should I take notes? Should I listen? Should I ask questions? I would love to hear what you guys think.
I definitely would suggest all of those. Taking notes, having your questions prepared to ask, making the questions relevant to what's being presented, and not, just something that you want to ask that person just because you know what they study, but make it relevant to their work and what they're presenting in that session. And if you have another question thereafter, follow up. Don't, be afraid to approach them afterwards by any means. We're all human, and very willing to, talk to colleagues and scholars and grad students about their work. So please approach people, as time allows. That's why I say have the business card ready so you can follow up. Don't take it personally if they don't have the time to offer in the moment, don't take it personally. It's a busy time. Just do your best to have your things prepared to engage, but definitely take notes, and make yourself, prepared and ready to talk with them afterwards, as time allows, to follow up. But there'll be time in each of the sessions to ask questions. That's part of the job of the facilitator or chair, to time it such that everyone gets time to present, and then they have time for questions afterwards, either right after their own presentation or at the end. They'll let everyone go, and then they'll have question time for anyone who presented so that the audience can engage.
Okay, outside of sessions, if you want to approach a presenter, a discussant, a scholar, what's the best way to do that? And is there a time that perhaps you shouldn't interrupt and approach them?
Outside of the presentations, I would say the social events that we mentioned, including the receptions. Most divisions have receptions. Some SIGs have receptions outside of the convention space. So you'll get word of by email or by knowing colleagues who are involved in those different SIGs, what they'll have outside of the convention time and space. So like I said, there'll be evening events. So that's a time to engage when you know someone or a group of people who are like-minded and interested in studying the things that you're interested in. If they have a SIG or there is a division around that topic, then find out when their social events are and go to those, and go to the business meeting as well. And then as far as approaching them, introducing yourself very briefly, being able to say, you have your elevator pitch, being able to say, what you do, who you are, and where you're studying in less than in 30 seconds really 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But really 30 seconds, because, things are moving. Being open to, what people call a walking meeting. So if you're meeting someone and they're saying, I'm on my way out, ask if you can walk with them, to talk and introduce yourself and hand them your card and ask if you can follow up with them. That, that connection is worth, 1,000% of your effort. So doing that with the time you have, if it's a quick time, but if you have a time to actually pose a question and follow up, after a session with them, again, being prepared and having that, knowing what you want to talk with them about. Is specifically about what they just presented on, or is it about their work more broadly? Is it about their, career trajectory? Is it about advice that you're seeking regarding how to approach your own research? Just being thoughtful ahead of time of, knowing going in what you would like to discuss with them is very important. If you're just wanting to, introduce yourself, get on their radar and express your appreciation for their work, that's great also, by any means. But, the more intentional you can be about that connection, I think the more you'll, likely get out of it. So, yeah.
And if they're out to dinner with their family, that is definitely not a good time to introduce yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so use common sense, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But also, so yeah.
I do have another question for you guys. Regarding social media, some people are a little bit slower to get around to social media. How important is that in our networking, efforts?
I think it enhances your engagement with scholars, particularly if you know that they're a person who, I'm not just speaking of scholars like faculty and senior scholars, early career scholars, but also your colleagues, your graduate school or graduate student colleagues. If and see through access that they are active on any particular social media platform, that they are public facing with their work, like Julian mentioned earlier, they are relevant, they make their research relevant in the social media sphere, then they're putting themselves out there to want to engage in that way around their research. And I think it's totally appropriate to follow up with that if you do the same and connect with them in that way. I think that's a wise use of social media if you're someone who uses that space to engage or to disseminate or to discuss your work with other scholars. I think it's a great way to connect across boundaries, right? I'm in California, I'm from Virginia. If there are people who are doing work in contexts that are different from where I live and I want to connect with them, social media is a great way to engage and begin a conversation, because you'll see that a lot of people do include and promote and disseminate their scholarship through social media. So I think it's totally appropriate to do so. Again, prioritizing respect, even if you have varying opinions, prioritizing respect is important, and that's it.
Are you both active on social media?
I'm not. I believe Julian is. I don't know if he's still on. He may have had to leave, but I think he very much is. The last time I saw, he's gone from the chat, but yes, he's very much is active on social media the last time I checked. But I'm not, and I'm comfortable not being. I, see what others are doing on it. I learn from it. I, get resources that they disseminate through it. So I think it's very useful for people who enjoy engaging in that way. I might get there later, but I haven't been thus far, and I've been fine without it, but I know how helpful it is. So I think it's a smart thing to engage in if you like it.
I think we've had a little bit of movement as far as our registrants, participants. Some have come in and out. So maybe for anyone that joined us a little bit late, what about like a closing sort of summary? What do you have to say as far as navigating AERA?
Yeah, happy to recap. So make a schedule ahead of time. Maybe Danny, if you could go to the third slide, the other one. Yeah, make a schedule ahead of time. Use this website, which is accessed on AERA19.net. It gives you access to the whole program. So you can search by participant. You can search by event, which I suggest you go to different types of events. Sessions for sure, and different types of sessions. So roundtable sessions, paper presentation sessions, poster sessions, but also meetings. So division and special interest group meetings, business meetings that they all have and sponsor and are included as part of it, so that you can get to know people and scholars who are researching and interested in the same topics that you study. So make your schedule, but make it a well-rounded schedule. Don't just go to paper sessions, don't just go to social events. Go to a little bit of each so you get the feel for the different types of ways that you can engage with colleagues and professionals in our field. You'll notice on this page that there are also ways to browse by day. So if you're going to be there, just on the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, plan accordingly and look by day so that you can plan, when the Division A business meeting happens, you'll block your time off there to go to that. And those are typically in the afternoon and evening, the division business meetings and SIG business meetings. So then you can plan your mornings to include your paper sessions and your roundtables, and then plan your evenings accordingly. So you can also plan by time. So if you know that you present at a certain time on a certain day, then you can block that time out, of course, and then plan accordingly with the time you have left. And then you can browse by person. So you can put a person or participant's name there. You can also browse by session type and unit, you'll see on the left. So if you have on your schedule already a few paper sessions, one business meeting, and a reception, but you need to get in a roundtable, then you can click on that and use that to find the roundtables that are of interest. And search by topic. So don't just limit your engagement to people you already know that you're interested in meeting, but prioritize topics so that you can learn how different people are studying the same topics and may present different approaches that you may not have thought about your work. So branch out and you make sure your net is working to include different perspectives and different people and different methodologies and ways of studying your topic. So use your topic to study and see how people are doing. It's basically a good space to not just surround yourself with people who are doing the same things you're doing, right? That happens in your institution or in your own space. So now you have an international platform to learn what other people are using to approach similar or related aligned topics. So make sure to engage in that way. Plan your traveling as far as your commuting time, if it's by foot or otherwise. Have your business cards ready. They cannot be underestimated. Yes, social media and electronic communication is useful and relevant and important, but if you just have a limited amount of time to make an introduction of yourself to someone, another grad student colleague or otherwise, use your business card to do that. So have business cards. I can't state that enough. And make sure you're filling, as far as networking, make sure you're filling a net, creating a net that's long-term, that has people or interest in it that represent your needs across your full graduate experience and into your career. So think about people who can be sponsors in your work, who can be mentors. Some people can just walk alongside you and not do anything for you, but you in turn, cheer them on and champion their work. So be intentional about meeting different types of people and engaging different types of researchers and scholarship around your work, and make presentations that are not boring, but be prepared with adapters that you need to connect your laptop or device to what is available in the room, which is sometimes just a projector. And have a charged device. Don't depend on them having working outlets. Just be prepared in that way to give what we know will be your stellar, presentations that we're very proud of you to represent as part of the Jackson Scholar Network. And have in your presentations ways for people to contact you, your social media, your email, your institution, so that you can, let your work speak for you and gain, even more of a professional network and setting. So I think that is.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That was incredibly informative. I did take notes, so I'm going to try to recap what Dr. Vasquez Heilig said earlier in the webinar. He recommended 3 to 4 sessions a day. Anything after that might be a little bit too much. Most of your sessions are going to be things that align with your interests, things that apply to what you're doing as a graduate student. And one of them should be something that's a little bit more fun, something that piques your interest, something you're curious about, but normally wouldn't attend otherwise. Definitely make efforts to network. Find the free food. I think that's a very important one. There are all sorts of receptions and events going on around town, and make sure that uh, you find places where you can go get some free food, meet people, and chat. There are special interest groups that you should look for. Keep finding ways to collaborate. Enjoy your experience. Right. Overall, I think that was like his main point. Have a good time, because before you know it, it's gone. And then a good theme, Dr. Nash helped us kind of put this together. Live in the moment, but also think long term. Okay. So that's a good recap, I think.
Yes, and to that last point, Danny, about long term, I would lastly say follow up after AERA. Don't not connect again with the people who you meet. For, fellow graduate students, scholars, researchers, practitioners, whoever you meet, and you exchange information, get their information, whether you write it down or get their card. But when you get back home, follow up. I can't stress how important that is. Like, that's the long-term part. You're making the connection there, but then thereafter, what are you doing to make sure that that works for you and for them in a way that contributes, the scholarship to the academy? Follow up with those people and see how you can stay, connected with them long-term. So that would be the last bit of information I would add.
Yeah, so true. Thank you for that. Now, a bit of housekeeping before we wrap up our March webinar. We do have many more exciting webinars lined up for you. Upcoming April 18th, that's going to be another Thursday webinar. We have Crafting Strong conference proposals. So if that's something that you are working on or interested in learning about, please join us. In May, we have strategies for making the most out of our summer break. And we have break in quotation marks because as a graduate student, there never really is a summer break. So you need to get used to that. And then in June, we have Doing Good Research Well. We have wonderful scholars available for those webinars, and you should really join us and come learn from them. We do expect to see everyone at AERA, and you can use everything you've learned here today and make sure that you have an excellent and successful AERA. Look for these webinars on the Jackson Scholars Network website. I'm going to put them up there. If you know someone that was not able to attend, make sure you send them our way. The links will be there shortly. I think that's all I have. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future. And Dr. Angel Myles Nash, Dr. Julian Vasquez Heilig. We are so grateful for you having taken the time to join us today and helping us, along our journeys. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Danny, and Holly for the invitation. Thanks so much.
Yes, thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you at AERA.
All righty, see you then.
Everyone have a great afternoon.
Bye.